And let's kick this show off, shall we? You agree with that, Grover? You going to get him out of here?
I can't.
He's going around. This is what happens. They circle the table. Try to get him. Can you try to get him? They're going to take him on a walk. Try to get him. Try to get him. Can you get him? This is my 8-year-old girl, Ava. Can you get him? Then we'll start the show. Once you can get the dog so there's not a circus behind me. It's much different than having the old newsroom that I used to have where I had like 50 writers. Now I've got an 8-year-old girl climbing on our coffee table to try to get a dog. There's a lot of similarities, I think, to that. Did you get him? He sees you? Can you get him?
No.
Let me see if I can get a camera on this, because this is gold. All right. Let's see if we can do this. There we go. Okay. See if you can get him. Can you get him? He's chewing on one of your dolls, I think.
No, he's chewing on his toy.
Oh, he's chewing on a toy? Okay. Go get him. Can you get him?
I'm trying to be slow.
See if you can do it. Get him. Jump. Good work. Good work. Takes a village sometimes. Oh. She got him. She got him. All right, just give me a second. This is live. This is live television for you. I think the other dogs on our street are upset that Grover got caught. He does this. He'll run around. He'll steal one of their dolls, like one of their like Frozen 2 dolls or whatever, and then you'll see him run in here, and the girls will go no, and he'll hide on one side of the table, and they'll go the other side. He'll go back and forth. It's endlessly entertaining. This is lockdown for you. He is ornery. All right, let's kick it off. Sorry for the delay, but I blame Grover. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome into Morning Invest on this Thursday, June 25th. I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor and founder of Morris Invest, which is a turnkey real estate company where we help longtime investors buy their first rental property. That's what we do at our company. I started this channel to bring you the financial intelligence that I think most Americans probably don't have because we were never taught this in school, right? We see all the Wall Street stuff on the news, and those guys, the rich, just keep getting richer. But what about the average American who works hard, has a 401k, is trying to carve out a better life for their family? That's what this show is all about. I teach you how to get out of debt, teach you how to leverage your 401k, to get it out of the stock market and maybe put it into real assets like gold, silver, real estate, things that are a hedge against inflation. And we talk about things that matter for you personally, personal finance to help your family move forward. So we've got over 700 videos here on the channel to help you do just that. All right, on today's show, I'm going to talk about Shutdowns 2.0. Yes, that's right. Maybe you want to call them Shutdowns 1.0. I don't know, because we're heading into another summer of disaster right now, as a lot of states are seeing a huge spike in cases. Our single biggest week of coronavirus cases yet. Some governors saying, hey, this is still the first wave. So we'll talk about the shutdowns, and then we'll also be talking today about the economic repercussions. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for your employment, unemployment? Now, what does the International Monetary Fund also think about the world economy? It's not good. Here's a hint, it's not good. So when you hear all this propaganda floating out of Washington that everything's going to be great in a few months, I don't know where they're pulling that data from. Because when you look at these IMF numbers today, it's frightening. So we'll talk about that. And we're also going to be talking about the second round of stimulus. We're getting our most concrete idea of what this new stimulus will look like. We're going to hear from multiple members of the White House today, as well as members of Congress, on how this deal is shaping up. We're getting some direct questions from reporters on second round of checks And we have some direct answers on those very points. We'll also tell you why President Trump or the Congress may not even want to pass a third round of or a second round of stimulus checks because of the huge price tag. We'll dive into that. But first, let's talk about coronavirus and the shutdowns, really shutdowns 2.0. We thought we were out of the woods on this. Reopenings were happening all across the country. Well, guess what? Overnight, we've seen a record number of coronavirus cases, a record number. In a single day, 45,000 new coronavirus cases. And health experts are blaming all of this. Can you guess what day they're blaming this on? If you had to drop this into the comments below, what day specifically do you think that they're blaming this huge spike? You remember, it takes a few weeks, right? It takes a few weeks for us to get this data. Anybody guess? Anybody guess? 3 guesses? You're right. It is, the health experts are blaming it on this day, Memorial Day. Remember this video from the Lake of the Ozarks when all those people were at the pool party, almost as if there was no coronavirus at all? Well, this happened not just in Missouri, it happened all over the country with big pool parties and gatherings and barbecues and other things. And guess what? As a result of that, we're now seeing a huge spike in cases. In fact, California saw a record number of cases this week. And Governor Gavin Newsom thinks, people just might have amnesia about the whole thing. And he says, we're still in phase 1. Take a listen to the governor of California.
We cannot continue to do what we have done over the last number of weeks. Many of us, understandably, developed a little cabin fever. Some, I would argue, have developed a little amnesia. Others have just, frankly, taken down their guard. And I understand that. We're all human. The reality is, I'm not naive, people are mixing. And that is increasing the spread of this virus. It shouldn't surprise anybody.
Huge spike in cases in California, one of their single biggest weeks of the year so far for coronavirus cases, up 70% in California. And it doesn't stop there. I'm sure it's no shock to you that it's happening all over the country, except in the Northeast. So the Northeast, why is the Northeast right now different, and why is it doing better than the South? And frankly, the Southwest, like California, Arizona. Well, the Northeast has reported significant decreases in cases. Take a look at these states and how it breaks down right now. I think this is a fascinating chart to look at. So you can see the spikes on the right side of your screen there. Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Florida, Texas, and California leading the pack. All other states are kind of there in the middle. And then look at the cases in other states that are plummeting. New Jersey plummeting, Massachusetts plummeting, Pennsylvania plummeting, Michigan plummeting, Illinois plummeting, New York plummeting. Why? Well, because they continue to practice social distancing. They're also now setting in place quarantines from other states. I think that's interesting, right? You have, listen to this, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut are all announcing 14-day quarantines from travelers from hotspot states coming into those states. And Rhode Island, I saw some people this morning joining us from Rhode Island. Rhode Island is also considering in doing what Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York have done, but they haven't confirmed it yet. The governor in Rhode Island is considering doing a 14-day quarantine. So if you come in from out of state in a hotspot, you have to self-isolate, stay in a hotel, and they will check on you to make sure you're staying there or stay in a place and not leave. So those other states have been doing really well in getting those cases down. It's really fascinating that Florida is almost, acting like they don't believe it. I don't know. It's really strange. And you have the treasurer of Florida saying, people love to come to Florida, which is true. I love to go to Florida. I love to go down to Orlando. I used to live in Orlando. I used to love going down to Clearwater and seeing my Philadelphia Phillies in spring training. I love going down to Florida. I love the Florida Keys. So he's right about that. Jimmy Petronas is his name. He says, though, the state will be better off than the northeastern states because people will continue to come to Florida for its low taxes and its beaches. But I think he's in a bit of a point of denial right now because Florida on Wednesday saw another spike in coronavirus cases. And I agree with you on Florida's taxes, right? It's been a safe haven for the rich, right? That's why all the rich people have houses in Florida, because if they go there 6 months and 1 day out of the year, that's their primary residence, and then they don't pay taxes. They don't have to pay state taxes. so state income tax. So yes, that's going to continue to be the case. However, it relies incredibly on tourism. And so you've seen economies across Florida just being decimated right now because of the reliance on tourism. But also now we're seeing a huge spike in cases because of perhaps reopening too quickly. So they've seen a 5.3% in a day increase in coronavirus cases in Florida. And that drove the stock market down 700 points. No surprise. Looks like the stock market, I guess, can be vulnerable after all. And their big concern is seeing a wave of another shutdowns coming. Greg Abbott out in Texas, he is now saying, he's not calling for an exact shutdown, but he said specifically in Texas, where they've seen a huge spike in cases, he said, I don't see any reason for you to leave your house. Any reason. That means not going out to bars, and they've seen a flood of people going out to bars in Texas, staying open late at night, and that's where they're seeing a lot of spreading, according to health experts. So, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, saying, I see no reason for you to leave your house. Stay home. Stay home right now if you're in Texas. Are you going to do that? How many of you are watching from Texas? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments any concerns you have about the state of Texas. But here are the different state breakdowns right now. Take a look. Texas seeing a huge spike in cases. Florida as well. North Carolina had been like a slow climb up. So that's what's surprising. Like some of these states really are seeing like a slow climb, like North Carolina. But then others are just seeing a straight up shot, like Texas, Florida, Alabama, Arizona is like a cliff. Now we also know from that event that President Trump held out in Arizona, we're now hearing that the Secret Service men and women who were members of the Secret Service who were at that event are now self-isolating and because of fears of contracting coronavirus. So they're self-isolating that member of that advance team for the president from the Secret Service. So right now, I'm going to show you the worldwide chart because this is important to understand where we go from here. So take a look at this. This is how the U.S. shapes up against the rest of the world right now. The United States just kind of like leads the pack. So it's broken down by continent. So look, North America, look at that. United States, it takes up almost the whole thing. And look at that little itty bitty sliver over there is Canada next to the U.S. Let me go back. Look at this. That little bitty sliver over there is Canada, right next to here. Look, here, there's Canada. Hi, Canada. So adorable. The U.S. is leading the pack in North America. Then Brazil and South America is leading the pack, up against Peru, Chile, and Mexico, also in the mix. Europe is fairly spread out across Spain, Italy, France, and now Germany is seeing a record number of spikes, about 1,500 new cases at meat processing plants. Tell me if you've heard this story before. Meat processing plants in Germany causing spike in cases. And now they're having to face considerable lockdowns again to combat that. Asia, Russia is spiking in cases. India continues to go up as well. Pakistan. And then in the Middle East, you have Iran, Saudi Arabia. But, come back to this. The United States, just overwhelmingly. Look at that. It's embarrassing as an American, isn't it? It's embarrassing. But that's the tale of the world right now. Now let's talk about Florida again a little bit, because remember the Republican National Convention about to unfold in Florida. Now we're seeing these mass gatherings. We saw, we're going to see what happened. We saw what happened on Memorial Day. As a result, we're seeing a spike in cases. So now you're going to have the RNC in Jacksonville, all these people together in that environment. How many of them will be, protecting themselves, wearing masks? We don't know. We don't know. So now the RNC will be live. We're hearing that now Vice President Biden is going to accept the nomination at the Democratic convention in Milwaukee, and all the delegates are being told to stay home. They're going to do a virtual convention. So it is really the tale of two conventions here, isn't it, folks? You got the Democrats are just saying, nope, we're staying home. We're going to do this virtually. Delegates don't need to come to Milwaukee, and I will accept the nomination remotely. And then you have the RNC, and President Trump wants very little, doesn't want like 6 feet in between people at events. He wants to treat it the way that they treated the Arizona event just the other day. He wants to have raucous crowds where when you look out on the audience, you're not going to see 6 feet apart. That That is what the president said. That's why they moved out of Charlotte, North Carolina, because the governor there said no bueno. So we're going to see that in Florida. I don't know why we don't have both of these virtually at this point. It seems ridiculous to me. During Hurricane Katrina, remember the Republican National Convention when John McCain accepted the nomination? Was it Hurricane Katrina? No, that was way earlier than that, or way later than that. Whatever hurricane. There was a big hurricane, and it was pretty much a disaster for anybody to travel, and so they did basically a virtual Republican National Convention with John McCain kind of on a big screen. It's not unheard of, that's modern American history right there. We can certainly do it again under these circumstances. And with Florida seeing these huge spike in cases, it's very similar to what we're seeing in Arizona just the other day. So let's talk about where we're at now. Let's talk about the world economy under coronavirus and what's going to happen going forward as this debt is now piling up. So this, we're seeing, according to the IMF, the past few months, an unstoppable force, as they're calling it, has hit an immovable object. The unstoppable force is government spending, and the immovable object is the massive declines in government revenue. And of course, the result is a huge amount of public debt, And according to the new report from the International Monetary Fund, we're approaching public debt levels not seen since World War II. World War II. And that's a worrisome milestone, folks. The IMF predicts the global public debt will surpass 100% of GDP. Now, what does that mean? That means that the debt load will increase almost 19 percentage points over last year, a much bigger jump than the one that followed the 2008 financial crisis. So 100% of GDP. That means the amount of revenue coming in to world economies is equal to the amount of money that they're holding in debt. Think about that for a minute. It's the first time ever this year that it's happened, but the first time since World War II, international crisis proportions we've never seen. The U.S. is running up an especially high tab right now without having income to show for it, which makes me wonder, how are we going to afford this payroll tax cut that the president wants? We're already way out of whack with the amount of money that the government is taking in from taxes and the amount of money it's paying out right now. Keeping businesses and Wall Street afloat, pumping all of this additional stimulus money. I don't know how we can afford it. And it's not just us. It's the European Union, it's Japan, it's China, it's all over the world. So the report also revised previous doom and gloom numbers for making it actually doomier and gloomier, according to Bloomberg. It expects global GDP to decline 4.9% this year, and the US GDP to dive down about 8%. So the IMF basically saying this is not going to be a V-shaped recovery, right? We keep hearing Larry Kudlow from the White House saying it's going to be a V-shaped recovery. We have this massive plummet and we're going to shoot right back. No, what we're more likely to see now is a W. We're seeing a little tick up, another big decline, and then maybe, it could be like a wobbly W because it's going to be a long road. This idea that we're going to be back in 3 months, I know the president is hoping that because he's facing re-election. And remember, no president has won re-election with an 8% unemployment rate. Over an 8% unemployment rate? No way. And the new poll numbers out this morning are not good. They are not good. I mean, especially in 6 of the major states that President Trump won before, like Michigan, Pennsylvania, the poll numbers are double digits the opposite way for him. And these are important swing states for the president. So big trouble in Washington around these numbers. So the bottom line, right now, countries that control their own currency, like the United States, are at an advantage, small one, when it comes to managing debt. The money printers at the Fed can always make sure the federal government is able to borrow money. And who is one of our biggest borrowers? China. They're able to write trillion-dollar checks to us, so we keep going further into debt to China. How does that sit with you? So one of the things the IMF says we could do is try to curb tax avoidance, broaden tax bases, making it more applicable for us to make more money, and potentially make their tax systems more progressive. Good luck with that. Good luck with us getting any kind of agreement among Congress right now on broadening our tax base. I just don't see that happening. So rising debt is not a free lunch, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be buying lunch for everyone right now. That's what Harvard economist and double negative overuser Kenneth Rogoff says. We should not be trying to buy lunch for everyone right now. Well, then who gets the free lunch? And who's left to suffer? I mean, that's the great question right now. And I think that's what everyone is trying to deal with. So not some good numbers from the IMF, not a V-shaped recovery, more of like a wobbly W recovery. We'll have to see. Very, very troubling news. So that's the very latest on coronavirus. That's the very latest on what we're seeing more broadly for reopening and shutdowns that may emerge across certain states. You know, Dr. Fauci testified the other day that he didn't think we would have to go into full lockdown mode again. But I'm telling you, I'm thinking we're starting to see these different state governments right now considering going back into a lockdown mode. These cases are getting out of hand. And we saw them go down once people social distanced and kept away from each other. But I don't know how much more this economy can take. You know, something interesting is happening too with, let me just say this about the economy. I think we saw two different effects of this on Wall Street. If I may talk about Wall Street here for a second a little bit. You saw all the stay-at-home stocks, you know? So you have two different kind of economies that emerge, like the stay-at-home stock buying trader, you know? And then you had the America Awaken, Back Open, Reopen stocks, right? Airline stocks, travel stocks. Then over here you had like Netflix, right? You had Zoom, you had online ordering, you know, that kind of stuff, right? Uber Eats and things like that. Those stocks surged like 276% during the pandemic. You saw Disney Plus, you know, all kinds of stocks skyrocketing as a result of it. And then over here, you had airline stocks plummeting, massive sell-off in airline stocks, you know, Warren Buffett getting rid of them. So there was a small uptick in America recovery stocks over the past few weeks since Memorial Day. Well, guess what? There was a broad sell-off again. So can the airline industry survive another close down, another lockdown, where we're not traveling, not getting on airplanes? And what kind of a bailout will the Federal Reserve do for them? Will they step in? Again, banks right now are suffering. Banks right now may have to cut dividends. And so, you know, all these people that invest in the stock market that, you know, always want to talk about dividends as the way that they make money. Well, a lot of these companies are getting rid of dividends. Wells Fargo may have to roll back on dividend payments to its investors. Dividends, maybe there's like free lunch of banks giving out money or all these stocks giving out dividends to their investors is drying up. Once again, another reason to pay attention to what Wall Street is doing and to maybe go in the opposite direction of it, if you're smart. Take a little sip here. We've got more to get to. I want to get to the stimulus next. Sherry Kraft says, I'm still trying to join on my laptop and I'm ready to cry. What? Don't cry. You're trying to join the channel? As a channel member? Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to be talking about stimulus here in just a second. Disneyland, by the way, Disneyland was set to reopen on July 11th. That has now gotten pushed back to, well, they're basically saying July 17th. You had a lot of Disney employees saying, please, can you hold off reopening because things are not good right now. So can you please hold off at Disney World and Disneyland in California? Look, I love Disney World. You know, the kid in me, I love Disney World. I love seeing my kids excited to go to Disney World. I've loved it since I was a kid. It was one of my first trips, you know, one of my favorite vacations as a kid in 1985, just a few years after Epcot Center opened, you know, I loved it. But let's be honest, every time you go to Disney World, your kids get sick. I mean, it's like a petri dish. You could not pay me right now to go to an amusement park or a water park. You know, I loved going to those water parks as kids, but think how nasty that water, I don't know. There was always like a funky smell at those places too, wasn't there? Maybe it's all the chlorine, I don't know. But yeah, or like cruise ships right now. I mean, how many of you would ever go on a cruise again? We have a friend that used to work at the CDC, infectious disease doctor. She travels the world, and she says, oh, she's like, and she, long before this breakout, she said, I would never get on a cruise. Never. Like viruses have like a potential to live on those ships way longer than other places, and just no thanks. Crazy times we're living in. Walt Disney was a veteran. Yeah, I read a great biography of Walt Disney a number of years ago. Yeah, yuck. Thanks to everyone who became a channel member today. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, did you see we have some of the new t-shirts and hoodies just rolled out? We're working on the mugs next. We're finalizing some designs. So right here on the channel, you should see some of the t-shirts. Got the polyester ones that are polyester and cotton. I'm super excited. And it has just our little logo on it right there, but we've got some other ones with Grover rolling out soon, so I'm excited about that. Karen says, I'm out of sync. Sometimes it depends on your internet speed, because we have a fiber network here with 1 terabyte, or 100 gigabits, 1 gigabit connection. So it's like the fastest possible connection, so that we can stream in 4K. So it might be, you might need to refresh your screen or something sometimes, so that happens on people's connections sometimes. Depends. And sometimes it's us. Sometimes, like we had a little glitch yesterday. Grover will be on some of it, yes. We're still finalizing some of the designs. I wanted one with him with his one floppy ear and his one ear up, so we're working on that. Because this one ear just does not go up. He's back laying down. See? I'm talking about you. That's right. So we'll get to that. All right. So we got these elements here, and we are good to go. That's okay. All right, it's time now for your second stimulus and stimulus package update for Thursday, June 25th. So glad to have you here, everyone. So we've got some news from the White House, and I think it's really our first concrete bit of news that we've had from the White House, from different members of the White House, on what a next stimulus package might look like and whether or not we would see direct checks. Now, I know it seems like we're going back and forth with this. There are some members of the Congress that are being reluctant to call on this next round of stimulus checks. So we're going to hear from them in a moment, and they're being a little cagey about it. But it also seems like some members of the administration aren't necessarily on the same page, and other members are having to kind of come in and sweep up after them a little bit. I would love it if we had a uniform approach to this. Now, you remember the other day Donald Trump was asked directly by a reporter, by a Scripps reporter, we played it here a couple of times, will the American people get a second stimulus check, a direct stimulus check? That was his question, to which President Trump said, yes, yes, we are. Those were his words. I'm not putting words in his mouth. Now, did he mean a direct check that has nothing to do with you going back to work? We don't know. We don't know. But Larry Kudlow was asked this question. Remember, he's the National Economic Advisor for President Trump. He was asked this question yesterday, and his response was probably the most focused and concrete answer I've heard from the White House yet on what this will look like. Take a listen.
I think the tax rebates or the direct mail checks are on the table. There's a lot of discussions going on. Probably we would want to target those to those folks who lost their jobs and are most in need. All right, that's a speculation on my part, but I think that's where it's going. Monica.
So here you go. That is Larry Kudlow. He said it's speculation on my part. So he kind of at the very end kind of just threw that little word in. It might be speculating, but you work in the White House. You've been involved in these negotiations. You're not speculating. So targeted direct payments to those who lost their jobs who are most at need right now. That is probably the most specific answer to that question that I've heard thus far, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And then to layer on top of that, I kind of got the sense maybe they're not necessarily on the same page, but Monica Crowley, who is also an advisor at the White House, I know Monica well. She was a colleague of mine. I worked with her for many, many years. She followed this up. She was not cagey about it. She kind of explained first. You have to kind of go through like the little political talking points in the answer, how well they've done and how we're going to bounce back. And then she answers the question at the end of her statement. So listen to this on a next round of stimulus.
Larry Kudlow used the words direct mail checks. In other words, ordinary people get a check in the mail. Can you tell me more about that, please?
Yes, well, what's astonishing, Stuart, is that President Trump is going to be the first president in modern American history to be called upon to deliver a booming economy not once but twice. And he is going to do it. Look, this was an unprecedented economic and public health crisis that required unprecedented response. What we were able to do through this administration, through Treasury and the Small Business Administration, is stand up this astonishing.
So when people go into these talking points, I just need to take a break for a second. That drives me nuts. Like, just answer the question. Can you please just answer the question? All we care about is the checks right now. So Stuart gets a little frustrated about it too, and he was waiting towards the end. But okay, she finally gets around to answering it. Take a listen.
Fiscal response done through sort of a private sector approach to make sure that American businesses, American industries, and American workers were protected through this period of time. That involved the economic impact payments. We were able to get out about 160 million of them in record time.
So will we see another check? Will we see another check? Will we see another check? Can you answer the question? Can you answer the question?
If we see in another few weeks that the need is still there for an additional kind of stimulus, and again, we're hoping that we can move from rescue and relief efforts of the U.S. economy into an economic stimulus, pro-growth incentives. If those conditions still exist in a few weeks, the administration has made it very clear that we will consider all options, including additional stimulus checks.
Okay, additional stimulus checks. That's what I want to hear about.
There you go. Okay. We got there. We got there, didn't we, buddy? We got there. Took us a little while, but we got there, right? So, an additional round of stimulus checks, did you hear her say this now? If we look and monitor the data over the next few weeks, what are they going to be looking at over the next few weeks? This is the troubling part for me. They're going to be looking at the jobs numbers. Now, we had a good May jobs report at the beginning of June. Good in part, but it was still a lot of people lost their jobs, right? So, and then those numbers have been revised, and we'll see those numbers revised here in the next few days. And then we will have our June jobs report, which is what they will be looking at. Now, I want you to remember that the Federal Reserve has said that it's just one data point. And the Federal Reserve has been calling for Congress to get another round of stimulus into the hands of the American people. They've done their part for Wall Street and businesses and lending. Congress, you've got to do your part. Now, too many politicians like to use this jobs number as this like Bible, this holier than thou thing. It's not. Very often the numbers are wrong. And it's just one data point. If you listen to the Federal Reserve, there are many data points we need to consider here. And when you hear from the International Monetary Fund in our last segment talking about the 100% of GDP and an economy that US GDP is going to slide up to 8%, GDP is fueled by consumer spending. Getting more direct stimulus into the hands of the American people will help us curb that GDP slide, because you'll be going out, buying groceries, buying gas, putting money into the economy. Ordering food online, having it delivered to your house. Target is now going to do curbside grocery store pickup because, they want to keep their stores running, and they want to have that social distancing application there available for people. So my concern is when you hear Monica Crowley and other members of the administration and Stephen Mnuchin is kind of on the same page with her saying, we're going to look over the next few weeks, this sort of wait and see. So I think in some ways, President Trump gets to play good cop, bad cop here, right? He gets to be the good cop. When asked about direct checks, he says yes. Then other members of the administration on his economics team are able to say, we're going to wait. We want to see how these jobs numbers are going. We also want to see about this $144 billion that we haven't spent yet out of the PPP program. Could we use some of that money, funnel it away from there and put it into programs that need it? All valid concerns. I'm not for just spending money like a drunken Fed chair. But Americans are hurting right now. And one of our viewers earlier, before we started the show this morning, in the pre-show, talked about the flood of evictions and foreclosures. The list goes on and on, how much people are hurting right now. So this wait and see, I'm not buying. And I often feel like maybe this administration is just not on the same page. Remember this the other day when Peter Navarro was speaking with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend, last weekend, and he mentioned what the president wanted and the price tag of $2 trillion. And then, well, he said this, and I'll tell you what other members of the White House had to say afterwards.
As we adjust. So the phase 4, you talk about a $3 trillion program by Nancy Pelosi. You hear from Mitch McConnell, only $1 trillion. The president is very interested in something on the order of at least $2 trillion, with a bulk of that focused on bringing home our manufacturing base, starting with pharmaceuticals and medical supplies and equipment. Maria, you know that if we've learned anything from this crisis, is that we need to make our medicines here, we need to make our masks here, our ventilators and all of that. And we're doing a great job on that. We've become, in 100 days, the ventilator king of the world. And who would have thought that 3 months ago when Governor Cuomo was running around with his hair on fire saying.
So the White House had to walk that back a little bit. And people said Peter Navarro went rogue, talking about $2 trillion price tag that the president wants. We had to walk that back. And a lot of people at the White House officials said, Peter's in his own world. Okay, so who then do we trust at the White House? You send a guy out from the White House to to do an interview like that. Are we supposed to take them at their word? So to me, it's like a cobbling together of a puzzle right now. And I have fun pulling all these pieces together. I think to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now we're hearing from President Trump, hearing from Larry Kudlow, hearing from Monica Crowley, hearing from Stephen Mnuchin around a next round of direct payments to the American people. But then you have that hedging it by saying we're going to wait and see. The same thing was true about unemployment. So unemployment is a big concern because it runs out in just a few weeks. And many of you right now in the chat saying, I still haven't received my unemployment that I was supposed to get since March. I still haven't received it. That's the trouble with state and local governments right now that are just being hammered, that aren't able to even staff those offices and get that money out to people. So Representative French Hill, that's his name, from Arkansas, sat down with Connell McShane to talk about stimulus and unemployment. And it seems like Congress is focused on doing something on unemployment benefits. And they're sensing that urgency because time is running out and they're going to be on 2 weeks vacation. So listen to French Hill about unemployment benefits.
Looking for as the economy opens up, what more should Congress do? And I think clearly something related to the unemployment compensation that we've had for the past 3 months needs to be dealt with before July 31st. I think that's a key demand side. And then secondly, on the supply side, what should we do with the $147 billion that's still in the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, that has not been allocated? So those are two key areas, I think.
All right. So unemployment is a key area, and now they're looking at maybe we reposition some of that money that's in the PPP program that's sitting there that businesses aren't taking advantage of. I mean, I hope if any of you out there right now owns a small business and you're hurting, please take advantage of the PPP program government grants to make sure that you don't have to lay people off and pay your bills and keep your business from going under. $144 billion is sitting there right now. And the first round was gone like that. So I think either people don't know about it, or I don't know. I don't know what else would be the reason. I mean, they allocated this money based on data that they thought these businesses needed. I just think a lot of people don't know it exists. So if you know anybody who owns a business in your community, you family, friends, brother, sister, I don't care, extended family, tell them about it. Tell them to watch this show. Tell them to take advantage of the PPP program and file for those government grants. They're forgivable loans, so you don't have to pay it back. and it'll help you keep employees on staff. It'll help you pay bills. An incredibly important piece of this. And now it looks like Congress wants to take that money and reposition it elsewhere. So take advantage of it before it's gone, before these members of Congress get their greedy little hands on it. That's what I'm seeing happening. But French Hill was also asked about direct payments. Would we see direct payments to the American people? And he really, again, wanted to play this sort of wait and see approach. It's on the table kind of talk.
Will there be more direct checks for people making under 100 grand, like we had last time, something similar?
I think that's, again, under consideration among a long list of things to take into account this month, looking for gaps. I think that's possibly one, the unemployment piece, the PPP piece. Also, additional guidance for state and local governments to make sure governors are sharing the money that the CARES Act provided with state and local governments. All those things are things that Congress has got on its plate between now and the end of July.
Okay. You hear that, Grover? Do you feel encouraged by French Hill? Yeah, I don't either. I mean, there's not appetite among Republican senators and members of Congress right now on the Republican side. There are a few that are obviously facing re-election that are pretty concerned about another direct stimulus check to the American people, but how this all shapes up is anyone's guess over the next few weeks. But if there is leadership from the White House on this for another round of direct payments, as you heard from the president, you're hearing from Larry Kudlow, you're hearing from Monica Crowley, then I believe we will see another set of checks in that $1,200 range is what it's sounding like it'll be. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, there are three big reasons why we won't see another stimulus check. And I want to be fair about this. So I know a lot of you want another stimulus check. I've been calling for a regular continuous stimulus check. As you watch this show, you know that I think like Canada and other members of the EU and Japan and Australia who've done regular, consistent $2,000 per month have helped them from going off an economic cliff. Germany is staying at a 5% unemployment rate. So having direct stimulus money in the hands of the American people to keep GDP from sliding off a cliff also is incredibly important, and to help you pay your bills and rental assistance and everything. So, but there are three big reasons why we won't see a check. I mean, if we see these jobs numbers come out at the beginning of July and they're favorable, and we're looking at a massive $20 trillion national debt that we're sitting on right now, there's a number of reasons why we won't see another check. Number one, it's just too stinking expensive. Where are we going to come up with this money? We're already not bringing in enough revenue. Federal government is way out of whack with the amount of tax revenue it's already bringing in. And then if the president wants a payroll tax cut, he has members of the Conservative Party right now looking at him saying, how are we going to do this? We can't afford another payroll tax cut. We need payroll taxes in order to fund our government. How are we going to pay for anything? How are we going to fund our defense budget? How are we going to fund Social Security? Where is this money going to come from? So the U.S. government already approved and spent trillions in financial assistance as a direct response, including a second stimulus check could cost at least another $1 trillion. And if you believe what the president's saying, he wants, or Peter Navarro at the White House has said $2 trillion, and other sources now saying it'll sit somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 trillion. Where is this going to come from? Senate Majority Leader has said he won't go above $1 trillion. I mean, I can't even believe we're having a discussion about trillions now. Like, billions isn't enough. The first round of stimulus check under the CARES Act was $300 billion to the American people. The $1,200 checks that you received, or some of you are still waiting for them, that was $300 billion carved out of the broader package. State and local governments crumbling, lack of revenue there as well. All of this adds up to one big ticket of debt. And, you want to talk about Rome burning, printing money like crazy, continuing to print money when the rest of the country is just going insolvent and the power of the dollar is crumbling. All you need to do is look at the dollar today. Look at the dollar today compared to the EU, the euro. And they were getting neck and neck there for a little while. Not anymore. Value of the dollar plummeting. So that exchange rate going way down again. So will we see another $1,200 stimulus check to the American people? I don't know. I think we absolutely need that. But where are we going to get this money from? So that's number one. That's one big reason we won't see another stimulus check. Number two, another big reason we won't see a stimulus check is, frankly, Republicans in the Senate don't support another stimulus check. I have yet to hear from any Senate Republican who is rah-rah for a second stimulus direct payment to the American people. Even those that are facing re-election are being cagey about it and sort of waiting and seeing till we see these jobs numbers. I want to remind you that these jobs numbers, as I said it before, I'll say it again, are one data point in a broader cornucopia of data points. The Federal Reserve has said the jobs report is also fairly inaccurate when those numbers come out, but they've said it's just one data point. How can you base this entire recovery on those faulty jobs numbers? Senator Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, has opposed another round of direct payments to the American people. He says the cost is too high, and he wants to focus on other legislative priorities, including liability protection for businesses. Other senators have said the cost is way too high and said the second stimulus check should be targeted to those who would need it, such as Social Security recipients. Senate Republicans could support this broader package as an initiative to return to work, as a return to work bonus. So again, another reason why we might not see this stimulus check. They believe it's more of a political play, that it has broad political appeal because then it can look like the president's coming in on a white horse riding in saying, hey, I saved you with this check. But Senate Republicans aren't so sure. They don't believe that it helps. They see a targeted approach to getting back to work as the way to have this stimulus check roll out. But what if your job is gone? No one will answer that question. The only person that will answer that question has been Larry Kudlow. When he was asked about where he sees direct payments coming from, he said he saw it as a direct payment to those in need the most, those people who lost their jobs. And I took that to mean that those people are not having their jobs come back anytime soon. That's the way I read it. How did you read it? Targeted approach to those who are most in need, those people who lost their jobs. Okay, that's what I think. And there's really a third reason that I think we will not see another stimulus check, because there are other big priorities in the package that take precedence over another round of direct stimulus. For instance, payroll tax cuts. That's what the president's been pushing hard for. A return to work bonus, which we just talked about. A $4,000 travel credit and an infrastructure plan, among other things. So trying to remove unemployment benefits so that's not hindering people from going back to work. Getting people back to work with a back to work bonus. A big infrastructure plan that can get roads, bridges, broadband, and 5G network set up. And that payroll tax cut, which the president has been pushing for, but Senate Republicans are not too keen about, because where are we going to get additional revenue to pay for anything? So I think there are three key areas right now why we might not see another direct stimulus check. And if these negotiations over the next few weeks, we'll see. I think it's on the table, but I think honestly it's one of the flimsiest parts of the table at this stage. What are the strongest parts of the table? Liability protection. That's being driven by Senate Leader Mitch McConnell. Liability protection for businesses so they don't get sued out of existence. That's one of the strongest parts of this negotiation right now. State and local government assistance. That's being driven by Nancy Pelosi in the House side and Democrats in the Senate. Those two big pieces. A payroll tax cut from the president. That the president wants this payroll tax cut. Another big piece of this. Reducing unemployment benefits that run out. That $600 tab, everyone agrees pretty much across the board that it's too costly. It's too much, and it's a disincentive for people to go back to work. They're happier just staying off work and getting that $600 additional on top of their unemployment benefits. Those, I think, are the strongest pieces of this right now, and some sort of a targeted back to work approach. I think the flimsiest piece, it's almost like you see those like tables at a coffee shop where, oh, we'll just extend that table and that one piece flips up, like that leaf, we can extend that table. I honestly believe that like $1,200 stimulus check is like this part of the table right now. Oh, we'll see. We'll see. It's not, to me, the strongest piece at all. Let me know your thoughts. Those are three key reasons why I think we might not see another stimulus check. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel and please join our daily newsletter. It's called the Morning Invest Newsletter. You can sign up for free. We have a link in the description below. It's totally free. It'll take you about 5 minutes in the morning to read the newsletter. We put a lot of work into it to kind of make the stories that I think drive the financial news of the day. They're important to me. They're important to you. So please subscribe if you'd like to get that newsletter delivered to your inbox for free every morning. Thank you so much.